Howdy everybody, I'm lulnenko. I'm just a regular guy, I'm normal. Today I'm going to be going over the patch 67.5 notes for Storybook Brawl. We've got a little bit of a patch, like it says here, mainly because of the pumpkins. It's a bit of a quick fix, but there's a bit of other stuff in here too. Let's go over it. Great Pumpkin King reverted back to what it was before this patch, 10-10 at level 6, and the reason giving being short games, long fights, and a meta that had too many pumpkins in the finals. So my take on this is more that pumpkins could cause huge spikes in damage dealt. I don't think the end game for pumpkins was so incredibly strong that it was pushing people out of the game for that reason. You know, I don't think it was crushing good boys in the super late game or something like that, but it was killing opponents off so quickly because when a pumpkin pops, summons a whole bunch of stuff onto the board, deals a bunch of damage. So keeping that as a high tier option on 6 rather than 5 makes a lot of sense to me. I like this change a lot. I am curious to see whether this tier 6 pumpkin will see much play now. Especially there's going to be some nerfs to other things that we see going a little deeper down this list. So there may still be a space for pumpkin in the meta, but I think the problem before, the reason why it moved to 5 originally, is that this card kind of comes too late. By the time you see this, you're probably already pivoted off of playing evils because there's not a great evil strategy on tier 5 that you want to be. So I'm curious to see where this lands in the meta. I think it's a good card as a 6-drop, but it should certainly alleviate the feeling that everybody is going pumpkin in all the lobbies, and it should make it feel like you're not taking huge bursts of damage all the time. Princess White is now changed to give +1/1 in the shops instead of +1/2. So this is not a reversion to the previous version of Princess White, which required you to have her on the board in order to buff the dwarfs. This is a shop only effect, but just with the health buff reduced a little bit. And I think this will still be pretty solid here, but certainly toned down a bit so that it doesn't feel like a player who finds white on turn 3.0 can just run over the lobby. And that's kind of what it felt like, is that you had this narrow window of like 1, maybe 2 turns, where if you found Princess White, you just autopiloted through the game playing dwarfs. So now that's toned down a bit. I think it's going to be a considerably less prevalent strategy. It doesn't really change the fact that you need to find this card within a 1 to 2 turn window to try to make it work, but it will no longer just run people over. So I think that's good, and especially with the change to pumpkin, I think dwarves needed to be toned down a bit so that they wouldn't run away with the meta. I like this change, happy to see it. Monkey's Paw now gives 5/5 instead of 6/6. I think Monkey's Paw was a bit much for a long time now, and kind of we had this change coming. And there's not too much to say about this because it's not going to change situations in which you wanted to take Monkey's Paw, right? There's not going to be a whole lot of situations where you would have taken +6/6, but you don't want +5/5. It'll just bring it down to be a little bit more in line with everything else and feel a little bit more fair. I like this change a lot. Merlin, this is going to be one of the most significant changes. Merlin will be giving +1/1 per spell instead of +2/1, so giving less attack now. And I think what I want to talk about here is sort of how we got to this point, right? So with the moving down monster book from tier 5 to tier 4, we started seeing Merlin's casting way more spells per game. With the reintroduction of Grim Soul, which can be used to activate Aeon, we're potentially seeing more spells cast alongside Crystal Ball. With Moonsong Horn, the tier 4 treasure that discounts spells, we're seeing some more spells get played with Crystal Ball and with Forking Rod. So over time, the ability to cast spells has just gone up and up and up. And Merlin, as a result, has just gotten stronger and stronger to the point where it feels like now just an amazing option to get a whole bunch of stats on the board. Now, I don't think Merlin tends to do anything super crazy that's running away with lobbies. I don't think it feels like Piper a couple patches ago. I don't think it feels like Wonder Waddle in any patch since the game started existing. But I can understand why they would want to tone down this hero, and I would love to see if the stats indicate that Merlin is a bit too much on all levels of play, or if this is more a change for lower tier players. I think Merlin is strong at the high levels of play, but I don't think it was outrageous. So where does Merlin end up after this? Well, honestly, I think despite the nerf being pretty significant and only giving 2/3 of the stats it used to give, Merlin should still be pretty good here. It's free stats for casting spells, which you generally already want to do. Mages are a pretty strong build right now as well. So I think Merlin ends up as a pretty mid-tier character. Certainly not too bad. Maybe around the level of Charon, maybe a little better than that. We'll see, but still feels reasonable, and I think the change is not one that I would have called for, but it's, I'm not too upset about it. Horde Dragon, health reduced from 45 back to 40. Yeah, so Horde Dragon has kind of been going crazy lately at the top level lobbies, and it's just because if you can survive for a bit as Horde Dragon, if you can stabilize in the early game, then in the late game you're going to run away with it, right? Because you can force your tier 7 treasures, your tier 6 treasures, and just have a huge advantage over people. So that early stability leading into the late game powerhouse is just a bit much, and taking 5 health off sort of increases that risk that you just die early before you get things going as Horde Dragon. I like this change. I think, again, Horde Dragon wasn't a hero that I necessarily put as the top of the top, but it feels like one of these risk versus reward heroes where as you get later into the game, it can potentially get to a point where nobody else can even compete with them. So that's something that it's worth keeping an eye on, and I like that the devs chose to take this action and set it back to 40 health. King Midas has gone from 40 health to 45, and this is quickly after Midas got a buff to now be able to get quest units in the previous patch before this one. And I'm going to say I don't think this is a necessary change. I have Midas as being a pretty okay hero even before this. The addition of quest units into the Midas pool means that you can go for Princess White, very strong dwarf hero, very, very strong dwarf hero. And you can go for Brave Princess, which is one of the best tier 3 units. I think really Midas was in an okay spot, and my personal stats seem to reflect this. So with 5 extra health, that just gives you more time to stabilize. You can try to go for those treasures off of Lancelot, off of Hercules potentially. So I'm big on Midas here. Again, I don't think it's going to be one of those top heroes if we compare to like Wonder Waddle as our gold standard. King Midas won't be at that level, but will be potentially a very strong hero. That's it for the real changes here. They're fixing some networking issues, which is good, and bug fix Grim Soul's Last Breath could target a Brave Princess whose quest has already been completed. I have had that issue in the past, so it's good to see that that's fixed. That's about it for this patch. It's a shorter one. Thank you for watching the video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. I have the patch notes in the description.